Welcome back to Iacon, everyone, where we review every episode of Transformers G1. Today we're looking at Divide and Conquer. We open with Chip Chaser, our disabled friend from the last episode. He's smart, so he works at all the places where the smart people are needed, like this factory, where humanity is working on building new weapons to stand up to the Decepticon army. Smart move, actually. It's shown in basically every episode before this that most artillery just has no real effect on the Decepticons. The exception were those jet rockets in the last episode, but you can understand why it might be hard to arm ground soldiers with those. I guess they don't have anything ready for the field yet, because when the Decepticons show up to steal their Energon, they have to summon the Autobots to help them. Optimus and Spike are investigating the previous spot where the Decepticons set up their last space bridge, trying to determine where the next one might be. He gets the distress call from Chip and heads there as fast as he can, instructing the other Autobots to meet him there. But of course, he has a head start. The Decepticons have all the Energon cubes nicely stacked up and are ready to head home when Prime shows up, driving through the extremely volatile cubes. Jeez. The other Autobots aren't there yet, so Megatron tells them to fight since they outnumber him 3-1. There are actually 4 Decepticons there, so my guess is Megatron wasn't actually sure if they could beat Optimus Prime. So he wanted to give Soundwave the chance to book it out of there, you know, just in case. And in fairness, Optimus fights them off pretty good. He mostly gets incapacitated by an explosion that he shields with his own body to protect Chip and Mr. Science. Then the Decepticons blast him and Prime is down for the count. The other Autobots show up and Megatron orders them away to get the Energon cubes back. Starscream finally did something right, so there's no use ruining the moment with him doing something again. The Decepticons retreat, and the Autobots tend to Prime, who they can't fix until they take him back to their base. The problem is he's the biggest one, so he needs to transform and drive himself back. That's like being so tall that after you have a heart attack, the paramedics tell you have to drag yourself into the ambulance. But Prime does it, and then he goes in for surgery. Although Megatron is uncharacteristically pleased with Starscream's victory, he also wants to make sure the job is done, so he sends in his most reliable soldier, Laserbeak. Even Laserbeak isn't super keen on going into the heart of the Autobot base just to confirm Prime's death, but he goes anyway because he'll be damned if he gets upstaged by Starscream in this episode. Besides, the Autobots still haven't bird-proofed their base despite, you know, Laserbeak. So he sneaks into the base on Brawn's shoulder, which is a level of sneaky that I'm sure ninjas would start taking notes on, and he watches as Prime is being fixed. And man, Huffer is a real negative Nancy here. Before they're even done with their assessment, he's basically digging a hole for Optimus to get buried in. Laserbeak then takes off and blasts Optimus in the chest just to make sure the job is done. He leaves and the Autobots are just like, when are we gonna put up some chicken wire? I'd put Huffer on that job just to get him out of the room, except he'd probably give up partway through, concede defeat, and then blow up the base. Ratchet says that Prime needs a new Cosmotron, some sort of Cybertronian liver or something, and Wheeljack says, "Oh, I totes got one of those. Oh, but it's back on Cybertron. Wah wah wah." So not only is it on another planet, but apparently it also happens to be behind a lock that the Decepticons installed. Chip seems optimistic though. He says with the help of the world's greatest detective, they'll be able to figure out where the next space bridge opening will be. Oh awesome, they're gonna bring in Batman. Oh, never mind, it turns out he's talking about Teletran 1, the ship's computer. Silly me. Well, Transformers was Marvel after all. Chip puts in the information on the last space bridge openings into Teletran 1 and it projects where the next one's gonna be. Well, look at that. I wonder why Prime didn't do that before. Never send a robot to do a computer's work, I guess. So Chip, Bumblebee, Trailbreaker, Ironhide, and Bluestreak all head to go on a mission to Cybertron. Starscream and Reflector are at the space bridge site and are sending up some Energon cubes when the Autobots show up. Megatron wants to have some fun, so he tells his troops to lose the battle so the Autobots could be sent up to Cybertron. I don't really get this tactical move, but Starscream is happy because he gets even more brownie points for doing something that he was already gonna do. I'm honestly not convinced that Starscream and Reflector threw the battle, and I think they just kinda lost. But whatever, it doesn't really make a difference. As they pass through the space bridge, Shockwave shakes his fist and yells, "You rotten kids!" before getting his feet unstuck from Ironhide's, sticky goop stuff. Megatron contacts some of his troops on Cybertron, who are all Starscream jet types, and he tells them to shoot acid rain onto the Autobots. So Chip manages to crack the code on the lock. It turns out it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they get Prime's replacement part. And now Starscream needs to change the combination on his luggage. But those jets show up and they shoot the clouds with their special powers, and it starts to rain down acid rain, or at least some kind of Cybertronian equivalent. The Autobots are freezing up, but Chip isn't affected at all. Still, there's no way he's going to get home on his own. Curiously enough, Chip is also able to breathe on Cybertron, so that's lucky. I didn't know Cybertron was a Class M. With Prime seemingly dead and several Autobots now disabled on Cybertron, Megatron wants to seal the deal and attack the Autobot base. Back to Iacon will return after these messages. We now return to Back to Iacon. With the Decepticons on the horizon and their leader edging closer and closer to death's door, the Autobots get discouraged, especially Huffer, who is preparing cyanide pills for the whole gang. But Spike takes a gun that is about the size that he is, and he gives them all a pep talk, which actually turns Huffer around instantly. Now he's ready to go all Rambo style and fight Megatron with his bare hands. But all the Autobots, save for Ratchet and Wheeljack, so they can keep Prime on life support, get ready to stand their ground and save their base. On Cybertron, Chip gives the paralyzed Autobots a pep talk that is, well, quite frankly hilarious.
No one's ever really disabled as long as he has courage!
Seems that with enough courage they can shake off the paralysis, and Trailbreaker puts on a shield to block the acid rain. And why he didn't do that to begin with is beyond me, but maybe it's courage powered. The Autobots are alright, and they drive right past Shockwave again, and he's like, "Oh, I better not tell Megatron this. I'm supposed to be the smart one." The Autobots start their battle with the Decepticons, and the cons are making short work of them. But fortunately, Chip and company arrive with the Cosmotron and drive it in to save Prime. The transplant begins in quick order, and Wheeljack thinks that maybe it's time to build another couple to have on standby. Just, you never know what could happen during that movie. Megatron declares victory as the Autobots lay in ruin. He laughs all evil-like, but then Optimus chimes in. So now there's a one-on-one fight challenged, and suddenly Starscream feels honor-bound by some code to not help Megatron. Of course, we know it's because he's Starscream, so that he's just hoping Prime will kill off Megatron so he can be in charge. Prime does defeat Megatron, and the Decepticons retreat. It was all thanks to courage and stuff. Divide and Conquer is a solid effort and a high mark for the show so far. Frankly, it's refreshing to see the ideas of the episode actually work together, so as a result, it feels like the most cohesive episode so far. That being said, the end does leave a little bit to be desired. The Autobots on Cybertron getting out of their plight by a pep talk from Chip felt a bit too contrived and just makes you shake your head. If they're paralyzed, they're paralyzed. I mean, are Chip's legs powered by courage? Does he just need to believe that he can walk, or does he need a wheelchair? It just feels like they just didn't actually know how to fix the problem, so come on guys, let's get more creative. Why not have Trailbreaker talk Chip through activating the shield from the outside? That would make way more sense. Now look, for the record, I'm not saying that people with disabilities can't overcome the odds and come out on top. I just feel like to throw a very blanket sort of statement of like, you can overcome this if you're just brave. It just paints a very overly simplistic solution to a problem that actually requires a lot more intentional effort. But I guess they do only have like 22 minutes for this episode, so, what can I say? The problem is more that there is a thematic element missing. There seems to be a strength in the numbers concept, kind of mixed with the whole courage lesson. The Jets beat Optimus through their teamwork. The Autobots are able to bring Optimus back through their determination and teamwork. Yet, the story of battling the Decepticons at the end shows the opposite. The Autobots stand together despite the odds being stacked against them, and then they don't overcome the odds, but rather they get their asses beat by Megatron. Their courage and their teamwork more or less amount to nothing. At best, it bought them just enough time for Optimus Prime to come out and save them. The resolution is a bit half-baked, but it would have been an easy fix. The Autobots, without their fearless leader to guide them, could restore Prime to health and actually prove to be stronger than Megatron estimated and defeat the Decepticons. Or at least bring them to a stalemate until Prime and the Cybertronian crew show up and surround them. That would at least feel like a stronger, more thematically fulfilling ending. But the one we got is okay, and doesn't ruin the episode or anything, and like I said, it's a more cohesive story than most of the episodes so far, so I'm going to give Divide and Conquer 4 out of 5. Now, can somebody please get Huffer some mood stabilizers before he hurts himself?